Hi everyone, welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by DataTalksClub, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events, and today is one of such events. If you want to find out more about the events we have, there is a link in the description. Go there, check it out. You'll see other things we have in our pipeline. It's been a while since we had a podcast interview like the one we have today. We are working on getting more guests to our podcast. So you will see more and more things there. So do not forget to check this link, and also do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, we have an amazing Slack community where you can hang out with other data enthusiasts, so check it out too. And during today's interview, you can ask any question you want. There is a pinned link in the live chat. Click on that link, ask your question, and we will be covering these questions during the interview. So now I will open the document with questions. Okay, and we can start if you're ready.
Yep, everything.
Okay, this week we'll talk about how is it to work as an open source developer and core developer in the Scikit-Learn universe. And we have a very special guest today, Guillaume. Guillaume is an open source engineer at Probable, and he's focusing on data science development and contributing to the Scikit-Learn library. He's actually not our first guest from the Probable company. We recently had an interview with Vincent, and yeah, so very excited about this interview, of course. So Guillaume is also an open source engineer at Tindria, and Tindria, for those who don't know, which is the organization behind Scikit-Learn, has been for many years until Probable appeared. And he worked there for more than 7 years. He also has a PhD in medical imaging, focusing on computer-aided diagnostics for prostate cancer. So welcome to our show.
Hello, happy to be here.
Yeah. So the questions for today's interview are prepared by Johanna Bayer. Thanks, Johanna, as always, for your help. So let's start. Before we go into our main topic of being an open source engineer and working on Scikit-Learn, let's start with your background. Can you tell us about your career journey so far?
Yeah, I can do quickly these things. So I will not start with master whatsoever. So I will start with my PhD. So basically, I was a user of Scikit-Learn. I mean, before Scikit-Learn, I was using basically MATLAB, and I was doing basically I did a PhD in like detecting cancer in medical imaging. I mean MRI imaging. And then you have to deploy those on a cluster, and then the licensing of MATLAB just block you because you have 300 nodes and you have 10 licensing, and that doesn't scale. So, I mean, we don't tell you to do that. So this is where I started to use like Scikit-Learn. And then
Which year was it?
So 2009, I think, something like that, or 2011
So
maybe.
Scikit-Learn was already a thing back then.
It was already a thing, and they are like why I was really interesting about it was they had this random forest classifier that was working very well for my use case. And then I needed as well I had this problem of data balancing because you have much more like voxel without any cancer, while voxel with cancer in those images. So I had like imbalance problems, and this is why nothing was there. And then by reading the literature, I said, okay, let's make something that is compatible. And then we just hanged out with some people that were as well interesting about that things. And one day I went to see a seminar where I saw like Gael Varocco and said, oh, by the way, I mean, how is it going at Inria? Is there any job and whatsoever? And one opportunity just present like a few days afterwards, and is how I landed basically
and
at Inria.
This is the guy behind Scikit-Learn, right? The one you're
and
talking
it is, yeah, Gael is the co-founders of Scikit-Learn basically when they started the project like 2011, I think, something like this. And by knowing that I was working on related stuff, say, oh, so you're pretty a good candidate to speak with because we want to maintain as well like the ecosystem and having people that are like have a tendency to touch those things. So come and interview, and then we'll figure out something. And then I never left. Okay, so I ended up at Inria. The modality of how it's like this evolved over times. First, like as an engineers within Inria, then within foundations, And then now probably just like a continuum of changing and trying to make sustainable, like pay basically engineers for these open source packages. So this is a bit like the track.
Uh-huh. So I only learned about Scikit-Learn in 2013, I think, maybe 14. Yeah. So like all the courses I took was about either R or Octave. And like for me, I still didn't understand that Python is actually quite convenient until I think I saw a course about that, and then found Scikit-Learn, and this like it was really good interface, the API we're using. So I think okay, I really like the way it's done. It's so clean, like with all this fit predict. So and then ever since I'm in love with this library. So yeah,
I had
thanks
some,
for
yeah, it was something
contributions.
similar. Because
Yeah.
I started the PhD in 2011, but I did like at
Hmm.
least half of the PhD in MATLAB.
Hmm.
So 2013 or 14 was pretty like the place that say, okay, actually
Hmm.
there's like this language, and then I never touched, and it seems like something much, much easier
Hmm.
to use. So let's go there.
Hmm. Yeah, so back then I actually, like in my main activity, I was a software engineer and I was a Java developer. And back then, what people used for Java was Weka. I don't know, have you heard about this thing?
Which one?
It's Weka. So it's a
Ah, yeah,
library
yeah,
from I think it's from University of New Zealand, somewhere from that part of the world.
yeah, because it's a Kiwi that is on the page. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
and you had at the time I think that you had a wrapper, a MATLAB wrapper, just to like
Hmm.
go and call the Java implementation. So I kind of like use it at some point as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was not as easy as just like turning into
Yeah,
Python and doing thing there. So
exactly. Yeah. So this is how we all ended up in the Python world, I guess.
I think so.
And you've been working first as a user. You've been using Scikit-Learn as a user first, and then you became an open source developer, right? And you've been doing this for 7.5 years, roughly, right?
Yeah, something like this. Yeah, first I mean, when I was developer, I was using Scikit-learn. Then I somehow like developed this compatible library, so I knew a bit like some internals, but roughly. And my journey really started when I collaborate or work with people basically at Inoya, because then like the inside just open, and then people
Mhm.
explain you like more stuff.
And these compatible, I think you said compatible libraries. So one of them is imbalanced-learn, I think, right?
Yes.
And others?
So yeah, right now we are working on something that is much recent, which is called Scrub. And this is to scrub basically your data and bringing back, let's say, your data sources that could be SQL table or any type of sources, bring them like closer to your machine learning models, because scikit-learn is very good ones that you have your tabular data X and Y, and then you want to preprocess them slightly and put them inside the machine learning models. But you cannot do like extreme or like joining and whatever pandas is good at, but doesn't have these like state things. So Scrub is more like inside this like scope of like bringing closer the data sources to the machine learning one. So that's like some tools that we want to make them like compatible, and I'm implying inside the development of those two tools.
Mhm. I'm looking at the GitHub README. So it says Scrap, formerly Dirty Cat, is a Python library that facilitates prepping your tables for machine learning.
Exactly, because so the original idea, so when it was called Dirty Cat, it's linked to a research project from Gael Varco actually, where it was interesting to say instead of trying to just take a columns and have to clean manually everything, like for instance categories which are not properly formatted or there's typo and stuff like that. Let's stop to do that and let's come with a machine learning approach where you will just reduce the amount of time that you have to do this manual preprocessing and come with uh, as good preprocessing with like a statistical approach. So maybe embedding, maybe like over type of things that go on. And that was the original idea. And then it was maybe we can just like enlarge a bit the scopes, not to only categories, but as well to if I have date times, I want to have like on the shelves encoding of those. The same with high cardinality category, low cardinality categories, and numbers. I mean, what can we do there? So that's a bit of scope of Scrub.
And the cat here is not a cat, an animal, it's a category, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, dirty cat was like dirty categories basically at the start.
Okay.
And the logo was
Like,
a dirty cat, but a real dirty cat.
So this is something as a data scientist I encountered quite often that you have a column which is categorical, but you have so many, like for example, country name. And if you let users type country instead of giving them a list of countries, then you end up with like all sorts of things there, like USA with dots, without dots, the US, like all sort of things, right? And you want to
Yeah.
normalize it somehow, and this is what Dirty Cat would help with, right? Helps with.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
yeah, so this if you think of it like, I mean, an MLP approach, so like with neural networks, you can just project those into a latent space like an embedding, and all those US and variation of it should be close together. So I can just like provide basically a vector where all of those will be like close to each other, and like something that is completely different will be far away. And I don't need to treat like the original data in some way. So I could maybe cluster inside an embedding space and just like trying to reproject back, let's say, but let's say the projection is good enough to start to do machine learning. But this is exactly that type of processing.
And yeah, so you've been working on Scikit-Learn for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Did you focus on any specific part of Scikit-Learn, or you worked on the entire library, or what did you work on?
So now it's quite a while. So I would say now I have an overview of what's happening, but of course, depending on the time, I'm just focusing more on something or something else. One thing that I really like, so I'm not a performance person, so I'm not doing low level things. I can review that, but I mean, this is not, I'm getting annoyed after sometimes. Um, I'm not like a pure math approach. Like I don't do like really like low level maths or like really going to the bottom and optimization. I mean, this is not my like where I can have the most values. And somehow I end up in looking more like higher level API things. So for instance, I'm really interested at seeing what type of value we can give to users when they want, for instance, to plot evaluation metrics or those type of things. And then you need to have a good API for that. And you have the model, then you want to plug it there and make like nice plots. Or sometimes as well on business cases. So let's say, I pray we will come back later on that, but like you have this for a very long time, the predict method just can take for example probability in the classification cases, and to make the final decision, you cut at 0.5, which is very confusing when you enter inside that. Nobody really questioned that things. And if you are inside a business, probably that thing is not the right one. And then, so for instance, we recently developed this meta estimator, which allow you to retune this depending of a business metric. So it's more on those like we see over time some very important thing inside the roadmap, and I will take like usually nothing that is really related to low level math or low level performance, and more to API, and sometimes go into like very deep into like the application and what can bring values to users.
Okay. And like when I ask this question, like what part of Scikit-Learn you worked on, I thought I realized that I don't actually know like what parts are there. Like I know that there are different submodules,
Mm-hmm.
like the tree submodule, the ensemble submodule, the linear submodule. How does it look under the hood? Do you have like, how do you, like if you wanted to split Scikit-Learn into multiple areas, multiple parts, how would you do this? Based on modules or based on something internal, or how does it look like?
So right now, how it's split is really in submodules and family of algorithm. So you have the pre-processing with like a bunch of things there. But then, as you said, like if I have models which are like linear models, they will be inside that modules. Ensemble will be like as well in their own modules, and trees in their modules. if I have nowadays to define what organization makes sense to me, it would be like to define the scope, basically where Scikit-Learn is good and where maybe it should move a bit. Would be we should have numerical algorithms. So decision tree linear models are like really you put an NumPy array inside, and it's what was from the beginning. You put an NumPy array inside, it does some mathematical operations to give you outputs. And at some point, we as well had like preprocessor, for instance, scaling and all of this. And I assume that nowadays there's a kind of a value, and maybe Scrubs can shine because there's a value to have like different tools. For instance, Polars bring like lazy data frame. Pandas was as well a data frame, and it's not anymore a NumPy array that you want to put inside those. It's much more than that. It's much more like heterogeneous and have more values. And I think that nowadays I will just like split into like component one, which is like the really applied maths where you need like efficient algorithm with solvers and all of those there. And then the other part, which is inside the preprocessing and pretty like we should have another vision on what those tools are doing. But I mean, they should help you to put them then inside the numerical part.
Mm-hmm. But should it still be a part of Scikit-Learn or like in a separate library like Scrub?
That's a good question. So today they are inside Scikit-Learn, and we have, for instance, difficulties to be compatible with pandas, poras, and all of those. What Scrub could be in the meantime is a playground to see what we should support and how to support it very well. And if at some point we have like something that you can just instead to use a standard scaler from Scikit-Learn, you have a version in Scrub that exactly do, but like speak to different backends, then probably it makes sense to say, you know what, Scikit-Learn will be the fundamental, I mean, like the foundation models of like tabular data. And then like we should restrain maybe to this. I have no idea. It's not a question, a discussion that we got in the roadmap because I mean, it's very early, but that might make things more flexible actually in that regards. So we should not stop ourselves to say maybe we should like remove some of the part because nowadays with all the backend that we have and to make it life easy to our users, we should like have these distinctions. And maybe Scrub will become like a Scikit-Learn thing, but I think that preprocessing should be split maybe from the numerical part such that people don't come and say, I want to be able to put whatever like matrix inside my trees, because at the end, this is a numerical operation. So we will have to convert into NumPy or CuPy or but to an array, because this way it will be very efficient.
Yeah. And also, since Scikit-Learn is, I would say, the most popular machine learning library in the world, it's not something you can just say, okay, yeah, we have this pre-processing model, but it doesn't really fit there. Let's remove it, because so many people
Yes.
depend on this, right? So, like, I guess for you, a big challenge is like, how do you change this thing? Because like the moment you change something in this library, so many, like you have this large domino effect, right?
Yeah, I will take a typical example. I mean, like the strongest examples that everybody in the Python community pretty like observe if you are at least maybe 20 years old, Python 2, Python 3. So
Yeah.
what you don't know where I mean, now I know because I'm 35, right? Like if you're 20, you don't know about it because I mean, it's already Python 3 now. But Python 2 should have been a change in a couple of years. I know, 2, 3 years. It lasted, I don't know, maybe 10 or because like, yeah, it was like some difficult part and make people switch is super difficult. And seeing that it's so costly, you really question if this is worth or not. So here we don't want. I mean, we have the same vibes in Scikit-Learn which is we don't want to break your ecosystem, your pipeline of machine learning just because we just find this is a much better way to do. So we need to have these very long transitions. And for instance, if this is like coming from like really splitting estimators, that will be a very rather big change. And then we need to understand how smoothly we can do, because moving an import is already breaking a lot of things. So changing your behavior is maybe even worse because like changing behavior, people get surprised and then they say, oh, I need to have this VD1 to V2 and now everything needs to change. So this is like, so it's really something that I would like that we don't have. Moving the import is maybe something that it's like, at least it doesn't change the behavior. So that might be okay. But I mean, it's not something that you just say, okay, now it's Scikit-Learn 1, so now it's Scikit-Learn 2, and then you change stuff. So it needs to be long. And up to now, we always have been like throwing down everywhere because of those, making it like a very trustful like library in the way that we don't break stuff.
And also, like when you make a change, I get a warning, and this warning stays for a few major releases, like until I'm okay. Finally, I'll fix this. Just stop doing this. Stop making this warning.
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So it's 1 year. We give a 1 year's lapse of time that people can. So
Uh-huh.
6 months where we change, and then we start to change ourselves the code, and the release will be 6 months later. So I give you like one lap of 1 years to adapt to your code.
Okay.
And I assume just people just like might be just annoying and just like pin the versions. I mean that's how it
Yeah.
can end up. I mean in companies
Yeah.
because you don't want to change anything. So that, yeah, even doing this is like already a challenge in some places. So we have to be aware of this.
Well, people still use Python too for some things, right? So
Yes,
as they pin versions for Scikit-Learn.
yes, that's true. At least now the PyPI repository tell us that a lot of people just move to Python 3. It's much nicer than what it was. Still, people using the 1.0 versions, and we are at 1.5. So maybe it's only CIs that like try the minimum version that they support, and then we get like a lot of downloads there. But this is kind of interesting to look at like that numbers. For instance, Colab is using Scikit-Learn 1.2.2, I think. So it's like you teach people using like as well old versions. So if today you say we don't care, we don't support anymore the old versions, or like we don't give like any interest, like in the next 6 months we break everything, then I mean, yeah, no, not that much people will be happy about it.
Was Scikit-Learn affected with the recent NumPy 0.2 release, 2.0?
That was a very interesting community effort. So yes, we got affected in our development, but I assume nobody as a user should have felt it because so what happened is that now with the SciPy community, like scientific Python community, these have been very well organized saying, oh, we are going to do this. And it's a long time that basically we are testing nightly build. So we are testing already since maybe a year against like NumPy 2. And then we discuss as well with the developer in different conferences, for instance, EuroSciPy with people from NumPy saying, we will make this ABI, so you probably want to make releases in between such that, I mean, we have the transition that people don't like from day 1 to day 2, they just like install something and is not compatible anymore. And I have found that it went very, very smoothly. At least we have the chance as being Scikit-Learn to only depend on NumPy, SciPy. So that's easy for us. But at least we didn't block anybody that depend on Scikit-Learn because we are already like ahead of that. And if the major package just like Pandas did the same and other like major libraries did the same, and I assume then it's up to the people that are dependent of those libraries to make the move. And when it comes to Conda, I think that Conda Forge is just amazing because they can just like, if people take care, then they can just rebuild all the packages. So it went very, very smoothly, but because of the community efforts as well, I mean, and communications. And that's very interesting things to me, I mean, for me.
And you're also quite tightly connected with each other. I mean, NumPy, SciPy, Scikit-Learn, because like, I guess they know that you're one of the major users, so they want to inform you about all the breaking changes.
Yes, so they somehow is like, if they have a major changes, they want to say, hey, by the way, on your side, how bad this is? And then we have the communications. And yes, the scientific Python ecosystem relies on a lot of people that are the same everywhere. So you have, for instance, a quant site that pay open source developers, for instance, like Ralph Gomers. And you can see Ralph Gomers, for instance, in NumPy, in SciPy, and then we know who to ping. So in Scikit-Learn, we say, oh, we have that question about what's happening. And then he will be directly like answering that things here. And then in Conafor, that as well, some other people that are really like tight. And so it's something which is scary in one way, because actually the community is not that big compared to the impact of what it has. But then it's very interesting because we always speak to the same people. So we need to onboard more people as well. But I mean, like, this is very interesting that everybody know each other and are aware that what you should break and what you cannot break, and how to make it smooth.
And I guess you usually meet at PyData or similar conferences, right?
Yes. So there's one community in the US which usually go either in PyCon, because now you have certainly a data track, and in SciPy. And then in Europe, we have EuroSciPy, which is like very small but very dense in core contributors, and usually happening in August. And otherwise, there's like multiple PyData events, and we see everybody in different locations. So for instance, PyCon with PyData Berlin this year, or like the year before, is one event where we see people. In PyCon Italy is one as well. And then this year will be PyData Paris and PyData Amsterdam. I mean, there are the things that's just like, there's many of them. So you are always be sure that if you go to one of those events, you will see some people.
Right. And speaking of PyData, PyCon Berlin, so this is actually where I saw your name and your talk. And I thought it would be nice to invite you for this interview. And the talk that you gave was a retrieval augmented generation system to query the Scikit-Learn documentation, right? Can you tell us a bit more what you talked about there?
Yes. So yeah, that's weird. Some LLM within Scikit-Learn. What's happening there? So yeah. So the reason is we were revamping the website, which is actually now like nicely done, using these PyData terms things. And during this revamping, one thing that we know that is not that great is this search bar. Somehow that's using like the Sphinx. I mean, it's very minimum. It works if you know what you are searching for. But if you don't know, then this is not that great. I mean, it doesn't do fuzzy matching and all of those like, or fuzzy querying. So it's a bit limited. And we thought like maybe, like everybody speak about those RAG and LLM, but none of us really knows. So that would be nice to make a POC and learn first, like the techno, what is it unlocking? And with our perspective of like open source package, what are the limitations? Because we have some, and if it brings some values and cost things. So basically, to go fast in the result of this is limitation that we have when we're open source, that we cannot collect data from users, because we don't do that. We don't want, we could ask people, do you want to give us like which search you are doing? And it's to improve basically usability. The problem is that if one day we leak those, I mean, we don't want just to take the risk. So we don't do that, even if it could be RGPD compliant. So we have no data at the front, so we have no very way of evaluating. And this is a big issues when you want to develop such like technology that you don't know what would be the impact, and that you don't know basically the framing, because everybody like see it and evaluate it in what they think that their user are using it for. And then there's all the things that user will actually use it for. And then on those things, you have no idea what it gives. So this is a very like, let's say, philosophical question, where is it the tool worth to put if actually nobody will use it or use it badly? So that was one of the things there. And then about the technique component itself, it was just to know everybody tell you RAG are simple, like just chunk your data, chunk your documentation, put it there, and then it will work. And then when you do it yourself, you just like see a lot of issues. So my point was to say, okay, let's make something that is reproducible, and let's look at what are like the pieces that people don't tell you in blog posts that you can read in 5 minutes. So let's look at those and make a presentation and bring back that first vision of a committee, and second, all the drawbacks that you didn't think at the beginning, and that could be helpful if you were thinking to start with that. So that was the talk in PyCon DE. And probably I will just like make a blog post with probable around that topics. And now we have as well this repository where you can just take your Mac and just like reproduce that and have your Scikit-Learn write if you want to test it. If you really want to see like what these things gives. So that was a bit like the idea of these things.
It's called Rugger Duck.
Yeah, I'm only proud about the name. So it's a Rugger Duck. So it's as bad as a rubber duck. You cannot expect anything from it, but you can answer some stuff. So
okay, that's an ingenious name. And then speaking of Scikit-Learn documentation, for me this is one of the best examples to me of how documentation should look like for a library, because like it's so well documented, and it's just like, and it has been like since I started using it. So when I became a data science full time in 2015, right, and then it was already so good, and it keeps getting better. This is amazing. And but to be honest, I never used this search functionality on the website. I just usually use Google.
Yeah, that's the things is first is like if the search is bad, then you try once and then it doesn't answer your need, then you don't do it. So you have that. I never really use it.
To try it.
Yeah, so I never really use it as well, but it was like maybe we can do instead of that, maybe a chatbot would be nice. So most probably no. One thing that we need actually is like something that is a good information retrieval system that could be cheap. And for instance, Algolia offer those type of thing. And then that's really like, let's say, one improvement in the user interaction experience for people that using this bar. For people that don't use it, maybe then if it's better, then they can use that. So we are much more thinking about like doing these things before to do like any right things. The right things is maybe we have to see because serving it as well, you need GPU, and we are a community. How do we pay for that?
Mistral.
So
Mistral 7B, right? This is what you use, it seems.
Yeah, that is the model. So you need to serve it. So somehow I need to get a server somewhere, loads on the GPU this thing, and then I need to pay 75 cents an hour for that machine. So, and at the end of the month, depending, and we have 1 million users that look at the documentation every month. If everybody start to just like make a request, queries, how much does it scale? So do you need more GPUs? How much does it cost you? And I mean, we're not a company that can ask money to people and just like cover the cost. I mean, that could be one thing that we could do if we're a company. I don't say that RAG are useless for companies. Far from that. It's just that as a community perspective, we have much more constraints. And then this is like, yeah, you should ask yourself those things. And regarding the documentation, I really agree that we spend an extensive amount of time to put ourselves to non-technical perspective to write that documentations. Bring as well the technical part if you want to go further. And the funny part is that I think that in the contributors, yeah, we like it, but we see a lot of things that we just dislike. And it's maybe why over time for people from outside, it looks like, it's improving because we hate some of the parts so much. Like you go in the example and there's too many things and we say, we should come and just like curate this because that's not helping people. So maybe a RAG would be good here to say, find me like the example that I search. I mean, that's, we never know. But this is always like, you can always do better.
And also documentation is one of the aspects where for us users of Scikit-Learn is we can actually contribute easily and these contributions are accepted because I myself have an experience of improving some examples, and then this PR was accepted like within 1 day or something like that. So it was pretty fast compared to other open source projects where there is like usually a long discussion and then a lot of revisions. So that was just that was a minor fix, but I was so proud of myself when
the
I
thing
contributed.
Is that, yeah, documentation is somewhere that with a small amount of work, you can have a huge impact. And even if you make a mistake, let's say I wrote a paragraph, I make spelling mistake, nobody will die from there. I mean, that's so actually you can quickly merge that because most of the time this is just like a jump
You don't need to
of
check it, right? I mean, you
uh,
don't need to run it to run all the tests. You just
oh
see the
just
diff,
yeah,
and then
but
okay,
just yeah, but the
looks
CI
okay.
run. So
Yeah,
OCI just will pick up those.
yeah.
But for sure is that we can be like reading and understanding what the impacts. And of course, if this is a documentation that like work about mathematical aspects and stuff like that, it will be slower. When it's straightforward changes, we don't need to go back and forth and having long discussion for speaking about nothing. So yeah, we try to be much more proactive on this. And for instance, we need two core maintainers to review on very like technical aspects or methodological aspects. While for documentation, we say we have a documentation team as well that are feeling like really like part of that process, and then only a single maintainers can just merge. So for them, like a person from that team say, I mean, this is good enough for me. I see the value of that changes, so let's just go because that will be already a net improvement.
And so speaking of contributions, so I suspect you have a lot of people. So there are a lot of people who just contributed once and maybe twice, but and then they moved on with their lives. But you also have people who work full time on Scikit-Learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those working full time on Scikit-Learn are there?
So in a year now, probable is one of the main like entity that pay for full-time contributors. So in the open source team, we are now 7. So maybe 5 of the people will contribute to Scikit-Learn there, and then like let's say in full-time equivalent because we spend
Mhm,
other some time on other libraries to help
mhm,
out. Um, and then there's external people, and then this is where this is a bit more fuzzy to know if they are fully paid like full time. And
mhm,
usually there's one person at NVIDIA that is team head, which is paid in this way. And otherwise, is more volunteer based things. So it's
mhm,
people contribute their time that are core dev, but doesn't have like the full like day to work on that. So in total, I mean, like if you consider like the core dev, we might be top 15 people.
mhm,
And this is where this is really important for us as well to be sure that, for instance, the full-time paid people like what we have at Probable will not just take over like other people, that those other people have the impression that they have no impact. Our goal is to be like the servant of the community. So we are here to address things that might be taking too much of your time if you are a volunteer there. So we can do dirty works on CI. We can do like those tasks with which you might don't want to spend your time. I mean, if you don't like to, if you are really
mhm,
like to do that, I mean, no problems. But we can
mhm.
free some time of other people. I mean, that's really how we see as well some of our impacts at being like a full-time paid
Mhm.
contributor.
And when you mentioned that you need two co-maintainers to look at to approve a pull request, I assume that the co-maintainers are not just in-real or probable employees. They're also like these volunteers that can
Yeah,
work somewhere outside.
yeah. So it's two of these 15 peoples, which are from the core maintainer teams. Okay, so that's when it comes to like the maintenance of the project and the code is this core maintenance team.
Okay. And like, how does it actually look like for you? Because like, if you go to GitHub and open issues, there are 2,000 issues. Like, how
Yeah.
do you, and like, how, I cannot imagine how many pull requests are there every day that you need to review. Like, how do you manage all that? You probably have some sort of process for managing all these things.
Of course, it's a chaotic process of open source.
Chaotic.
No, but so it's half a joke because during a long time we didn't have any process. We just like whoever want to look at an issue, just look at an issue. Whoever want to review the PR, review a PR, because we cannot, for instance, say to people that volunteers, please look at that things and solve it,
Yeah.
because that's I mean,
They are
do what
volunteers,
you want.
right? Yeah.
So at least seeing that now we have probable, or for instance, the foundation at INRIA before, we try to have a bit more of process where we would have, work on defining a community roadmap. So help people are defining this community roadmap. Then within the people that are paid, we can say we have our priority items on that roadmap, and we will look at those items which and help on those basic things. And I assume that one thing that happened since probables is that nowadays we went the step a bit further, which is we want to have project boards on GitHub, and there's like project boards on priority that the core team find that this is useful, and like issue that are linked to this, and to have an idea or like between milestone, between releases, what we should focus and what we try to achieve. I mean, this is like one way of organizing and having a bit more process, let's say. And second one is that we create as well this round robin triage issue PRs. So every week there's one contributor that say
they understood separately. But round robin, what?
triage. So triage task, let's say. So the idea is that it's not always the same person that will go there, and it's like a weekly task where you go and you go on the issue tracker, or you go on the PR, and then you give feedback on things that have nobody received like any answer. And one of the issues if of not answering to people is that they are leaving, but actually these are part of our fault, is that is not only the fault of people just like leaving, it's just that we don't have enough time like to retain them. So here we try to have a small process that we ensure that one person is affected to give back, like ask more details on the issues to know if we should close or not, if this is reproducible, if it's missing informations. So this is like the easy part. On the pull request is more on like giving a first feedback and to the person. So let's see if we can like quickly answer, and that people doesn't get like say nobody cares about my contribution. I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And for the moment, I think we are 6 or 7 contributors doing this. So every 6 weeks, this is coming back. And while before, I think that it was much more like whoever want to answer or just answer. And for instance, that was one of things. It's something that I really like going to the issue tracker, answering to people and like interacting with them there. It's something that this is something that I like. But in the same time, you say maybe I should as well spend time on some priority feature, because I mean, this will have as well an impact. So I think here we found like the middle ground, saying we should have one person looking at it, but then like as well as a contributor, you should as well spend on community-driven roadmap tasks or items, let's say. So that's
I understand. Okay, so you have to invest in community work as
yes.
a company, I guess, as the core team, that people don't feel like nobody cares about them.
Yeah, so we always give the example of, for instance, TensorFlow. And if you go on the PR, we checked yesterday actually. If you go on the PR tracker of TensorFlow, then you see bots committing, because actually it's PR from the internal Google development that are just like backported on the external projects. But there is no community there. It's a open source software developed by a company. Which could be fine. I mean, that's answering the needs of people using TensorFlow. What we have a very different target. We just want to be a community and grow around that, and favor like people that want to actually be part of the process. I mean, is what we like, is what we are from the beginning. And it's not because Probable is now a company that pay for some developer that it should change. We are at the service of the community. We are not driving the community by our choices.
How often do you have to reject PRs?
I mean, that's one of the reasons of that we have 600 PRs, is that we don't reject that many. Let's say the PR that we reject the most is people coming and say, "Oh, look at my new fancy academic algorithms, and I want to include it," and then we say, "Sorry, we cannot." But we came with criterion to try to discuss basically the discussion, which is we are a very boring library. Okay, so you can come back in 3 years and show us that people use your things, and this is actually have like a huge impact on every data scientist. Or two years. Yeah. So proof of time is what we need. So I assume this is most of the thing that we say. We discarded because we created some of two rules, which is citations and let's say useful, like practical usefulness. They can show us that yeah, that's the way to go. And it makes that things are slow. In between, we can help at for instance, making like imbalanced-learn never have been in Scikit-Learn for those reasons. But this is a compatible package, and we can tell you how to be compatible. We can give you the tools to put your estimator, be compatible, and you maintain it until you show us that this is working. And for instance, HDB scan, which have been recently merged in Scikit-Learn, is from Leland McInnes, that wrote that inside the site contributions, and that was compatible. And at the time that we saw that it has a clear impact, it have been merged in Scikit-Learn in this way.
Do people usually talk to you in some way, not to you specifically, but to the core team before they start working on PRs? I guess this is a good way of making sure that what you do before you create a PR is actually not in vain, that when you open a PR, there is high chance of something happening, right? So is there a way to somehow communicate with you to say, hey, like, I have this idea, do you think I should work on that?
Yeah, that's the issue tracker. So the issue tracker is not only for issues. Yeah, like I want to propose this feature, and we really like that people start by that before to send us a PR. Usually, what happens is that if you send a PR and this is borderline, we don't know exactly if we should go forward. We always ask the person. So thank you. You will not receive any feedback here. Please open an issue so that we can have further discussions, and then we'll come back there if this is valuable. We don't close it necessarily because we don't want to be abrupt, because we have no idea. I mean, if it's a clear thing that we see that, yeah, that's going to work, we are probably going to close. But we want to have the discussions, and the issue tracker is as well the place for that.
Because one of the mistakes I personally did, I remember I tried to contribute to XGBoost, XGBoost for Java specifically. And then I did that without talking first to the maintainers. I spent like maybe a week, not like full week, but like every now and then during this week, I spent some time, and then I was so proud of opening the PR, and it was just rejected. And then like I was so disappointed, like I was like I put so much effort there, and I thought this is cool, this is improving the library, I'm doing something good, and then they had their own opinion on how things should be done. Which is, of course, this is who are going to maintain it afterwards, right? So it's okay for them to have this opinion. But for me, as somebody who tried to make this contribution and my PR is closed, I feel kind of rejected, right? So now, since then, I think like, okay, I first should talk to the maintainers to make sure that this aligns with what they want to see. And if it does, then I move forward.
This is really like a way forward. It's what we are writing inside our contribution guideline, saying, come to speak to us first. We will not bite. And even on the PR themselves, we are not going to bite at the first, like, you open it like 5 minutes later, we just close it without telling you why. I mean, it's not welcoming. We don't want people that feel rejected because we are just like boring and annoying people. We want to make people understand like what are the reason, and the process is long and is a pity because the process could have saved you times. Most probably if we had it up front. I mean, that's, but if you missed it, at least we want that you understand what the reason behind that. It's nothing personal, it's nothing that we don't care basically about it, or I mean, this is just like, okay, let's that's the same rule for everyone. We need to go through that discussion process.
So if I want to contribute to to Scikit-Learn, what are the steps I should make to make sure that it actually happens, or I don't waste my time implementing something that will not be accepted?
So I think there's two things to do. First is like read the contribution guideline, which is on the page. So it brings technical things, but it brings as well like the aspect of what do we expect with the interaction, where to go and how to interact basically with the community. And then from there, yeah, it's coming back to opening any issues and discussing, and then the way forward will let you know basically. But there is more details. We have always like a huge and too big page with information there, but it's where like it's the gold mine to basically do that things.
Mm-hmm. And if
And
I
I
just
think
defend it,
nowadays,
yeah.
sorry, yeah, I think nowadays we just like as well help a bit in the issue tracker. Like if you try to open an issue, then we tell you, do you want a bug report? Do you want an enhancement feature? Do you want this and this? And then we tell you, oh, if it's this case, look at these things, because if it's a bug, then we need a minimal reproducer, and we show you how to do one. So we try to engage you towards looking at the right part of the documentations. If you didn't come to the issue tracker, then yes, you didn't see that, and then yeah, you might go like in a different path, and that's completely fine as well. It's just that will bring you back to the path that we are used to.
Mm-hmm. So you also use some automation to make sure you can still manage all these issues and all this process.
Kind of templating, let's say. But otherwise,
Templating.
we don't have any bots. So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, project, for instance, do like bots saying inactivity during 2 months, 3 months, we just close that things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm personally very like against that.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
in terms,
inhuman, right?
and the thing is that if it's a bug, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's still a bug, I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's not
Yeah,
because you
right.
have inactivity that you should close it, because either maybe you're not able to reproduce, but at least it's there. If somehow somebody else come with a reproducer later on, it's a
Mm-hmm.
win. If it's something close, it's much more like difficult to interact, because like you lost the sight of that issue. So you can lose sight as well when you have 2,000 issues, but I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, you have this. So it's a kind of a trade-off. And the worst would be like if you log the conversations and saying now you cannot speak anymore, you have to open a new one. You need to make
Yeah.
it easy such that people can come and just like discuss to you. And even if there is like noise that's not related to what is the subject, I mean, this is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's okay. I mean,
And
and
if
should
I
be
just
fine.
defended my PhD with and developed like a novel method for something, I should probably wait 5 to 10 years before I make a PR to Scikit-Learn.
Not 10 years and not 5 years.
Some
And it
level of
depends. And I would say it depends. If your PhD was to make a new solver for making a linear model like optimization much faster, then
uh-huh.
it just come and tell us about it, because
Mhm.
that's an inner thing. It's not adding a new model, it's adding like a very internal things. And maybe we will see and we have to discuss. So we are a bit more lenient on those like low level things that doesn't have like a user impact. It's just that it needs to be really, I mean, first, like the PR will be hell for you because it will be a PR to implement it, but it will be a lot of benchmark to be sure that every corner case that we are used to are covered. And 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 it will be a process that will take you a long time. I mean, it's not like, I mean, you should not expect a 1 week PR because the process
Mhm.
will take times.
Mhm. I
If this is
guess.
like a full new algorithm, then yes, then like this is a much more complicated thing.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I have a question from Adonis. So Adonis is asking, how do you decide on what to improve next in Scikit-Learn? Is it public feedback, trends, something else?
Yeah, so a bit of everything. So first is we are slow to move in Scikit-Learn in some way. Um, so some of the priority that we have is priority that we got during like years, and we just like improve over time. But then there's like, new updates of what is important in 2024. And we have two ways of doing this. So first, like we're running this foundation where we had money from sponsor company from outside that were our users as well. So we were asking them, how do you use Scikit-Learn? And from there, we could have an idea of what's important for them and helping us at maybe updating and prioritizing item on the roadmap. So coming back to the community with that feedback from our close users, did you heard anything with like, does it look like okay for you? Like this is it making sense, or is it like some are really like only for that industry and then we don't care? So there's this first thing. And now we are preparing with the community itself a much more public survey where we want to ask similar questions. So it takes much more time because you need to prepare a survey which is short but bring you the right informations. And this is like a job that you need to know how to do. So we are being people like that really take care about like developing that survey. And I think it will be launched in a couple of weeks or upcoming months at most, where we will ask like the broad community, what are you using Scikit-Learn for? And one of the goal of this survey is for us to understand updating our priority and understand as well, like if the goals that we like define since years are aligned with those ones. So if you are a Scikit-Learn user, you can expect at some point in the upcoming 2 weeks, you will receive, or you will see Galva tweeting, or the Scikit-Learn account tweeting about this specific survey on the website. We will like maybe a top banner saying like, click here if you want to help us to know and to shape the future of Scikit-Learn.
So I was just going to ask you how we can stay notified, and you mentioned that we can subscribe to a couple of Twitter accounts, right?
Yeah, the Scikit-Learn Twitter account it will be like the main communication channels. And then on the roadmap itself, the roadmap will be published on the website. So there's already one. If you go in the about section, then you will have something roadmap, if I remember. And the idea is to always have this. I mean, it's not like static; it's moving over time. So here the idea is to be able just to update it. But we need first to make the survey and consolidate it into actual things that we are working on. Another source is, for instance, on the Probable website, we are publishing a roadmap of the priorities, basically, of the people that work on Scikit-Learn, to make it like obvious and transparent what we're working on, what is our agenda. And actually, on that blog post, there is not only ours, there are as well like the agenda of other core contributors that decided to say, oh, I want as well to put my name on those list of tasks because I will review or stuff like that. So we want to make as well like communication on Probable's site to really show to people what we do.
Do you have something like a mailing list? Because Twitter has an algorithm in order to decide to show you something or not. And even if I'm subscribed, even if I'm following Scikit-Learn, the Scikit-Learn account doesn't mean I will actually see it.
So we have several things that's on social media. So we have Twitter. We have a huge pool on LinkedIn, actually. So we will publish the same information on LinkedIn. And then we have this mailing list, which is a public one, like public mailing that anybody can go there. We have low traffic. And for instance, the roadmap will be surely something that we will communicate, either to participate or either we publish a new roadmap, we'll redirect, send an email saying like, oh, go and see what's happening on the website because the items are there. And we already, for instance, do that for every releases, saying, oh, we make a release, we use that Scikit-Learn mailing list. And this is public, everybody can just like ship in. And so that's like I would say that's the free source of information. And otherwise, if you want to be close to the maintenance, GitHub is the best place for discussions maybe and issues. I mean, everything is centralized there in terms of like development.
And I'm trying to find the mailing list now on Scikit-Learn website. So I see that there is a roadmap. I don't see the mailing list.
If you
It's
Google
probably
it,
else. Okay. Or should I use maybe search on Scikit-Learn?
no, I'm not sure that you will find. I think that we have a support. Yeah, so there's
Yeah, support.
there's a link
Yeah, found it.
inside the support page.
Scikit-Learn mailing list. I can see it.
Yes, and this is on the Python mailman basically.
Mhm.
So this is stored there.
Looks very old school.
It's very old school. It does a job.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks a lot for joining us today, for sharing your experience, expertise, for talking about the internals of like behind the scenes of Scikit-Learn development. That was pretty interesting. So thanks
Yeah,
for your chat.
happy to have been here.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. So have a great week, everyone. Goodbye.
Well,
Thanks a lot. Bye.